Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. Later, we'll be visiting with former Lexington Mayor Pam Miller, who is leaving the city that she led for a decade and where she served in city government for more than a quarter of a century and where she and her husband have lived for nearly half a century. Pam Miller looking back and looking ahead later on Kentucky Newsmakers. But first, it's a busy time at the University of Kentucky. This weekend, 2017 graduates picking up their degrees and they're heading off to whatever's next. How will the university try to keep them involved going forward? And after more than 40 years, Commonwealth Stadium is the former name of the football stadium, which is now called Kroger Field. UK is planning to issue $171 million in bonds to continue work at the Chandler Medical Center and to pay for a complete renovation of the UK College of Law. Joining us this morning are UK Provost Tim Tracy and Vice President for Business Affairs, Dr. Eric Mundy. So we have academics and the money here this morning. And gentlemen, thank you very much for coming, and happy graduation weekend. I guess it's always fun when you get to the end of the academic year, right?
It is, Bill. Thank you for having us here this morning. It is a great time. We have graduation this weekend, and we'll confer over 5,400 degrees at the University of Kentucky.
Which is amazing. And you've had to make some accommodations to have graduations that large, right?
It's a good problem. It's a good problem. We've had to go from 3 graduation ceremonies to 4. We want to make sure it's the best experience for the students and their parents. And so we believe by doing that in 4 ceremonies so that maybe they don't last quite as long, and that allowing them to see also the master's and doctoral graduates for each college together with the undergraduates. And we think that gives them a little inspiration for going forward, but also to get to see some of those students who were their teaching assistants recognized as well.
A great get-together for all. What do those changes say, the increased number of graduates? What does that say about the future of the institution?
Well, I think it's a very positive sign for the institution that we're growing, that we're producing more degrees for Kentucky. And we know that a great number of our students stay in Kentucky. In fact, close to half of the students from the non-residents who come from other states remain in Kentucky. And so really helping the Kentucky economy. So I think we're positioned very well for the future. And we want to make sure that more Kentuckians get degrees.
Dr. Mundy, you have to accommodate those students. There's a massive building spree that is going on at UK right now. We've mentioned the bonding, which is to assist the hospital as well as the College of Law. But there are so many things going on over there. Where are you with construction?
Yes, sir. So $2.2 billion in the last nearly 6 years of Dr. Capilouto's time at the university. And it's broad. We talk about our hospital mission, our healthcare mission, but it's beyond that. It's in academic projects and in quality of life projects, housing, dining, student centers, rec centers. And how do we really build those facilities that help us build the best environment for our students' success? And to focus in on that, and it's not just what they look like from the outside, but it's the community, it's the learning that happens on the inside. So real exciting time to be at the university.
And that's where there has to be some collaboration between academics and business. You have to have that eye to the future as to what the facilities are going to be needed and what kind of expenditures will be taken. And Mr. Provost, you have to think in terms of that degree having quality when those students walk across the stage.
Absolutely. We've got a tremendous partnership, and so we really do our planning together. And it's all about that student experience, making sure that those students have, as Dr. Mundy said, the right facilities, and also that they have the right classroom experience. Many of these facilities have tremendously what we call technology-enhanced active learning rooms, ways that where they can really use technology to interact in groups and teams and really practice those things that we know they'll have to do in the future.
We've talked about improvements to campus, those kinds of things that are going on. What is done to try to ensure that graduates who enter their post-college years are not saddled with so much debt that it imperils their own ability to get started in life?
Absolutely, and we worry about that all the time. One of the significant steps we've taken this year is to begin something we call UK Leads. LEADS, obviously leading the country, but also LEADS stands for Leveraging Economic Affordability for Developing Success. It's a change in our scholarship program. One of the things that we found was that students who have high unmet need, the difference between what they can pay and what they get in grants and scholarships and the total cost of attendance, those students are much less likely to complete. It's probably the most significant factor in our students not being able to get their degree. Obviously, then it plays into the degree of debt that they take on. So we're altering our scholarship program to make sure that we address that unmet financial need. We're still going to be giving merit-based scholarships, but now a larger proportion of our scholarships will be based on need. We think that will have a huge impact on the number of students finishing, but also an impact later on in life by having lower debt loads.
Research is an important component at the university. It brings money to campus as well as prestige, and is really an important reason for being there. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the benefit of having a comprehensive research university. We not only educate students to go out into the Commonwealth and have an impact, but we do research that conducts an impact. For instance, our work in colorectal cancer and screening for colorectal cancer, what our investigators found, the procedures they put in place and the ways they worked with the state government to change policy have resulted in a 30% reduction in the mortality related to colorectal cancer in Kentucky.
Are you concerned about potential federal budget cuts? Because I know, as we said, the money comes in. Some of this money is coming from the federal government for those studies and research projects you do. Yes,
absolutely. We receive well over $100 million just from the federal government and National Institutes of Health. And so if you think about an 18% cut, we're talking about potentially $20 million. We worry about that quite a bit. It's also in terms of jobs. That would, we believe that would affect about 220 people in the jobs here in Lexington that are related to research and that money. But it also means that we don't get to make those advances in cancer, in diabetes, and substance abuse, those things that really impact our state quite a bit.
And Dr. Mundy, you're watching that as well, obviously, in your office.
Yes, sir. So $580 million is a conservative estimate of the economic impact of the research enterprise. 8,000 jobs is the multiplier we see from our research enterprise in this community. So any impact of that, it is about jobs, it's about economic development. We're talking about the opportunities for our graduates, but it's also the opportunities that are in front of us now. And how do we protect those and how do we grow those? Our job, our goal, is to have a larger economic impact, not just on Lexington, but the Commonwealth in general.
This Commonwealth is about 10 years now into cutting higher education in terms of the state assistance that goes to the public universities. Do you look for that to change? Is it important in your view that change, or do universities just have to find another way?
Yeah, we are focused on understanding what the challenges our policymakers have. And we appreciate the appropriation we have right now, and we're going to focus on trying to argue and justify why we have that appropriation, but also pay our own way too. And we understand that there's large challenges and large issues. About 8% of our budget comes from the state, and that's an essential 8%. But we also want to focus on that 92% and how we can be good stewards and also grow other sources of revenue for the university.
So you take that 8% that's the given, and then you work from there.
Yes, sir.
All right. Obviously, the headline maker of the week at UK, this decision to rename Commonwealth Stadium. How did that come about?
A multi-year effort. In 2014, the university signed a partnership with JMI Sports, and that was a 15-year, $210 million partnership to help the university, help the athletics department, look at ways in which we can further serve our fans, our student athletes, our students in general. One component of that is we had the ability to look at naming rights on our football stadium and other stadiums as we look to the future. And JMI Sports looked for an iconic brand, a great community partner, and found that in Kroger. And so we're real excited about Kroger Field and what the possibilities it brings to not just the campus, but the community as well.
The Board of Trustees easily approved it. There were 2 no votes, including one from the president of the student body, who said that she had heard from a lot of students who were concerned about the tradition of the name Commonwealth Stadium. How do you respond to that?
You know, we're about dialogue, we're about conversation. We're about ideas and having good conversations around change. And so we played at Stoll Field, we played at Commonwealth Stadium, and we're going to play at Kroger Field. And so we really look to the outcomes, the positive. You know, this partnership is so much more than just the name on the field. It's also what it's going to do for the community. It's what's going to do for the athletics department and allow it to continue to give back to the campus. So we're looking forward to Kroger Field and playing in September.
Was this something that makes sense within athletics and might not in other areas, or are there other areas on campus where there might also be a public-private partnership?
Well, we're excited about all of our public-private partnerships. Naming, particularly corporate naming, is primarily centered around an athletic zone, if you will. So I don't necessarily suggest that that's going to permeate to other areas of the campus, but clearly looking for the ability to partner with great brands like the University of Kentucky, like Kroger, is what we're going to continue to do at the university and specifically in our athletic department.
As we see the workplace evolve, Mr. Provost, and the jobs are changing. Many people are interested in robot-proof jobs going forward. How's the university adjusting? And how much are you keeping an eye to the future about some of the job availability that may or may not be there?
Well, we're always worried about the outcomes of our students and making sure we prepare them. And I like to say that we can't teach students in 4 years everything they need to know for the next 40. We've just got to realize that. However, what we can do and what we are really focusing on is helping students learn, how to take in new information and new materials as they become available, and then learn how to apply that information. That really is the secret to a long-lasting career. And in fact, if you look at the National Bureau of Labor Statistics, they say that on average, students graduating today will have between 10 and 15 different jobs by the time they're 37 years old.
Wow.
You figure that's roughly one a year. And so we want to prepare students for what I call career evolution. And that is the learning how to learn, take in new information, and learning how to apply that information.
How important is it that the graduates and friends of the university continue to be involved? You made reference earlier to you hope that those students going across the stage will look out and see the graduate students and maybe aspire to that. But how will you continue to dialogue with them so that they don't take their diploma and hit the road and you never hear from them again?
Sure. Well, we've got a pretty sophisticated system of keeping track of people, but really it's building that relationship, and it's a bond between that student and the university community. And really that's what we try to do a lot of. And so how do we continue to reach out to them? It's through local alumni groups, and we have tremendous alumni groups. In fact, in Washington, D.C., we have 2. We have so many alumni in Washington, the Washington area, that Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. area, that we even have 2 groups. And we're getting much more sophisticated in how we reach out to those folks, keeping them involved, because they are hopefully, they give back to the university, not just financially, but in terms of connections with students who graduate and become that network that they can help plug those students in and get them opportunities that they might not otherwise have.
Dr. Bundy, what is the equity in a brand? You have supporters at the University of Kentucky among the people out in the population in Kentucky who have never been to campus, or certainly don't have a degree there or didn't attend there. Is that important as well, people out there who have some identification with the UK, even though it may not be direct?
Sure, and a lot of that is through our athletics program. We know that. Some say that's the front porch, the front door to a campus. But clearly that connection, that the value, our College of Agriculture, Food and Environment, and being out there in the extension in all 120 counties, our land grant mission, that connectiveness to the campus, whatever that value is, whether it's wearing a UK logo on a t-shirt, whether it's attending an athletic event, whether it's coming to a campus, that entire cycle of connectedness is essential for our success.
Healthcare is big business, a major part of what you do as well. Are you keeping very close tabs on the national environment of health policy right now, which is obviously potentially shifting?
Yes, sir. And so we have several staff members that are completely focused on the changing health environment. Our health engine is so critical for the Commonwealth, and looking at whether it's health disparities in our research enterprise or it's looking at our patient care facilities here in Lexington and the services that we're providing. So we are keeping a close eye on that, and we'll work to respond in the best way possible, focusing on quality care and value for our patients.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming. We appreciate it very much. I hope you enjoy your summer. I'm sure you both worked through the summer, though, right?
Yes, thank you, sir. It's good to be here.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. We're coming back in a moment with former Lexington Mayor Pam Miller, who is leaving the city she's lived in and led, coming up on Kentucky Newsmakers. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers. Pam Miller is an important part of Lexington history over the last half-century. She worked for passage of the merged government. She was on the first Urban County Council and later was vice mayor and the city's first woman mayor. During her decade in office, she was forthcoming about the decisions that had to be made about leading Lexington into areas that in some cases hadn't been taken up before. She was mayor when the racial tension boiled over in 1994 following a police shooting involving a teenager. She worked to bring the community together at that time. She supported the Fairness Ordinance that outlawed discrimination in the city based on sexual orientation. She presided during a time of major growth and expansion, always looking for ways to preserve what makes Lexington and the Bluegrass special. And there will be a reception this Tuesday evening at the Downtown Arts Center as Miller and her husband turn another page in the chapters of their lives, and they're moving back, basically back home, right? Where you grew up.
Back to New England, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mayor, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate that.
Good to be here.
Did this.
It feels very good.
We did this a lot of times in the 90s and early 2000s when you were serving as mayor. Let's go back though. What brought you to Lexington in the 1960s?
Well, my husband was finishing medical school and then finishing an internship, and had done some work in Palo Alto, California, and was looking for the kind of job that appealed to him, and there was a position at UK Medical Center. And he took it, and we rolled into town in 1970 with 3 little kids, and downtown Lexington was, was upset with urban renewal. I mean, physically upset. You know, everything was closed, and there was a lot of dirt around, and
so
we thought, well, what's this?
Did you see that immediately? I mean, how did you so quickly get involved in public affairs here?
Well, it's amazing when I look back on it, actually. But what happened was that there was the merger campaign. Timing is everything in politics, and it was everything in our lives, really. When we arrived here, the League of Women Voters was doing a study on Congress, and I had been working in Washington at the Congressional Quarterly. So they invited me to be on the board of the League of Women Voters. And then the League turned out to be very important in helping to get the merger passed, the merger of the city and county governments. And, I met a lot of people during that merger campaign. And I just thought that was a great idea to put these 2 governments together, which really didn't need to be separate. People who are younger now don't even realize that the city used to come out like this and the county was like this, and it was very bizarre.
The police would be called and it was in their jurisdiction or not, and a decision had to be made and that kind of thing.
Right.
So you're elected to city council. You served there for several years in the 1970s. Interesting times. Right.
Yes, it was. And Foster Pettit was the mayor, and he was he was the leader, unquestionably, in putting things together. I was kind of a leader in the sewer department because one of the reasons I actually agreed to run was because the county area where I lived had all kinds of septic tank problems. And after a rain, it was pretty smelly.
Right.
And I thought, we live in a nice neighborhood, but it's not nice after it rains. And so I collected petition signatures, and the very first meeting, I handed this petition to the council and said, please, let's work on getting sewers in this Elizabeth Street area. And
there you go.
And then other people felt the same way.
You took just a little time off. You came back and were elected to the Urban County Council at large.
Right.
And you said you really liked that position. You were countywide,
yes,
but not yet the mayor. So you kind of could have your own agenda, right?
Exactly. I mean, I could you know, concentrate on things I was interested in, like the Children's Museum, getting that started with a group of women, and the Kentucky Theater, and I was really into local agriculture at that time, working on expanding the farmers market, and we had a green pepper project, which was marginally successful until there was a drought, and then it was not a success. But yes, I enjoyed I enjoyed that a lot.
Then you were vice mayor, and Scotty Basler was mayor. He gets elected to Congress. He ran for governor, but then he was elected to Congress. And then, did you want to be mayor?
Well, it didn't occur to me earlier in my life. You know, I didn't know what I wanted to do as a young woman. Kids always ask me that. When did you decide you wanted to be mayor? And I said, heavens, I never decided I wanted to be mayor until I was vice mayor. And then Scotty was leaving, and I thought, well, you know, I think I've done this council bit a long, long time, and I think I know the issues here, and, you know, I'll give it a try. So I actually inherited the mayor's job for the first year. That was helpful, and then I won with a big victory. I was lucky to have a weak opponent. Always helps.
And then you were reelected. The mayor's office is different, though. I mean, it is just day to day, hour by hour, minute by minute. You don't know what's coming through the door.
Exactly.
In terms of a decision you might have to make, or something you might have to respond to, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, a good example is something you mentioned in the introduction, which is when Tony Sullivan, a young black man, was shot by one of our police officers. And it was awful. I mean, the whole inner city community was, you know, up in arms. They were angry, and they stormed down to City Hall, and you know, you can't do that much about it right away. You have to set investigations in place, and there were 3 investigations, one from the National Justice Department, one from the state, and one from the coroner, and one from the police. 4, I guess. But yeah, so that kind of a thing takes over. But in all the good things you want to do.
In that moment, you knew you had to bring the city together as best you can.
Right.
And what did you do at that time to try to do that?
Well, I spent quite a bit of time in the black community. I went to some churches on Sundays, and of course I went and met with the family, and I think just made statements about the fact that we needed to do something to address the restlessness and the anger of the inner city youth, because they just didn't sense that they had any opportunity. And so that's when I got involved with creating Partners for Youth, which turned out to be a successful little organization, and it's still going.
All right. We are with Pam Miller, the former mayor of Lexington, who is moving away from town here in just a few weeks. We will continue in just a moment. Ask her what she's proudest of while she served as mayor, and what's next for her. Coming right up. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers. We're visiting with former Lexington Mayor Pam Miller, who is moving away from town here at the end of the month. What do you consider to be your best success as mayor? What are you proudest of?
That's a difficult question, because there are 2 or 3 things that I feel the best about. I think one is I feel in the long term that it was really important to get the purchase of development rights program through to preserve the horse farms, because that's you know, that's going to be a permanent legacy. I hope that nothing happens to it. I don't know how anything could really, and that's important to me. I also really felt good about programs I did for kids and for my communication with the downtown community and the African American community, to try to make some progress in those relationships. That's never going to be an easy relationship for everybody, but I feel good about that.
What do you see when you look at Lexington today? You were mayor from '93 to 2003. Mm-hmm. How do you see the community? How is the city doing?
I think the city looks great. I think the past mayors we've had have done a really good job of focusing some energy in the downtown. I started quite a lot of things in the downtown area, but there was a lot to be expanded and included. And you know, I worked on North Lime, for example, creating those broad sidewalks for cafes and things outdoors. And then Jim Newbury did the same thing with South Lime, and you know, kind of bringing that closer to UK. And then Jim Gray has done an excellent job of, you know, of improving things in the downtown. So it's, I think particularly the center city has really come a long way, and there are people living there and loving living there.
People encouraged you to run for other things. You showed no interest after you were mayor of that. Senator, congressman, this kind of thing.
Well, I just, you know, 10 years as mayor was exhausting and very exciting, and I didn't think anything else would suit me as well. Tell
us quickly about your decision to move. Is a lot of mixed emotions?
Well, it's really sad to leave Lexington. I mean, I'm weepy at some of the dinners and parties we're going to, because they're wonderful people here, and I met a lot of them through work I was doing, and I've always been the kind of person that made better friends through working together, I think. And so I'll miss it. But we're going to Lexington, Massachusetts, what this Lexington was named after, the city, and I'll have some old friends up there, and I'm really excited about being with our 2 sons and 6 grandchildren. You know, I need and want to spend more time with them.
Well, good.
And
well,
it'll be good for them and me too.
Thank you very much for coming, and best wishes, certainly.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers. I'll see you bright and early this week on WKYT This Morning. Have a good week ahead.